think last time I did my plug worse. So I'm going to try to not do it with my earbuds today and see how that works for me. So, see how that works for me. Okay. Oh, that's just telling me I'm going live. Well, guess that's a good note. So I'm actually drinking a little matcha today, guys. It's a little watery because I did put ice in it, but it's really good. It's that brand Rise. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. I think it's RYZE. It's supposed to be like a mushroom coffee, but it's also this mushroom matcha. And the matcha tastes way better than a coffee. So definitely enjoying that. But so we're going to jump in and we're going to get started. And I'm not going to be on here any longer than I need to. But I think I might, like I said at the end, share some things that I've been wanting to share. Just the revelation that I got. Um, and I think it will probably, I pray that it would be inspirational to you guys as well. Um, so hopefully you guys are having an awesome day. It's crazy because Mondays are really tough, like they are hit and miss. And so when I come on a Monday, most evenings I'm wiped out, but I still want to try to have like a little bit of energy. So thank you to those of us who have, or those of you who have joined me on IG Live, and thank you to those who have joined me on YouTube Live. So we're going to jump right into it. As you guys know, this is Ask Dr. K every Monday at 8. Just kind of answer some of the questions that I received via email. Of course, all the responses are anonymous, so I do not attribute any of the questions to anyone. But I assume that those who submitted questions are, if they're not tuning in live, then they, will go back and watch the episode to get the responses. So I'm going to jump right into it. And these are a couple of long questions. Okay. I have two that I'm going to go through. Both of them are pretty long. So let's see. So first question. Dear Dr. K, my 19-year-old son just came out to me and told me that he is gay. I'm still trying to figure out my feelings, but one thing that I know is that I'm angry. I don't want to have to deal with this. Hold up. I'm angry and I don't want to have to deal with this. I showed my son support when he told me, but truthfully, I'm sad, angry, frustrated, and scared. So many feelings. I want to be able to genuinely support my son, but my feelings are overwhelming. I'm a leader in my church and I'm nervous about the church finding out. I've been avoiding my son because I don't want to say, I guess he said I don't want to say anything wrong. I'm assuming that's what he meant. And I don't want him to feel my true feelings. Any advice on how I can process my feelings and deal with any backlash or gossip from the church? So I guess let's deal with the reality first. I know you want to talk about the potential response from the church, but that is that's not even secondary. That's like way, way, way down the line. I think the first thing is dealing with your emotions. The fact that your son told you, and now you're in the process of processing it, and that makes sense. Like I wouldn't, feel you shouldn't feel bad about having to take time for yourself to process it. So don't feel bad about that. Also understand not wanting to, I guess, engage with your son too soon, or without you having dealt with your feelings, because you're right, you don't want your son to feel like you're shunning away from them or shying away from them, or make them feel uncomfortable, or even make yourself feel uncomfortable. I think that's you can feel uncomfortable as well, as you're trying to figure out where you are and what you're processing. So I love the fact that when you were talking to your son, when your son first told you, I love the fact that you supported him in that space, and then took a step back and and in the process of trying to figure out how you feel about it. That shows, I think showing your son that you support him is a good idea. It is a good, I guess, a good first step. But then I think also when you're talking about, feeling angry and sad and frustrated, like really processing what is the anger, like what is that about, so even just writing it down, or trying to just process it for yourself first before you're able to even articulate it to anyone else. And I think also processing it for yourself, because there may be some emotions that you're feeling that you may have to, discuss with other people. Like all the things that you're feeling may not be necessary to have that conversation with your son. So you may be having feelings that you may, want to process with, with a good friend, or, a family member or something like that. So first step is figuring out what those feelings are and what they're tied to. To be angry is interesting. And you said something about you don't want to, I think you said something like you don't want to have to deal with it. And that's probably where the anger and all that stuff is coming from. It's like, why do you have to deal with, this situation? I would say, again, for you, writing down the feelings that you have, not trying to, you don't have to try to figure out if they're acceptable. You don't have to figure out anything about the feelings. Just write them down first. What are you feeling? And then take some time with each of those feelings and really try to pinpoint why. Like, why would you be angry? And really just kind of, pulling that thread and figuring out why anger, sadness, why sadness? What is it about that situation that makes you sad? It could be the fact that you may have had ideas about, the future, your son's future. Could have been, ideas of, or the reality that your idea of him is not his reality. So that might be reasons why you're feeling sad, frustrated. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, with all you specifically mentioned sad, angry, frustrated, and scared. Scared is one of those that, again, why are you feeling scared? Are you scared about how other people will treat your son? Are you scared about how the church might respond to you? Like, what are you scared about? And there's no right or wrong answer. Like, your feelings are legit. How you feel is legit. So I would say, just being honest with yourself first and exploring what those feelings are. Try to pinpoint it. And again, maybe looking for a trusted friend, someone that you can, talk to and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling. And maybe they can help you talk through those feelings. And then I think ultimately, once you've figured out why you feel those things, because you may even be able to, like, as you're going through the process, you may realize that, okay, there's nothing for me to be really frustrated. Like, I'm frustrated, but once I talk it through, then that frustration is gone. So then frustration is no longer a part of those feelings that you have to work through. But I think once you get to the end of those feelings, or at least to the point where you've really been able to figure out what it is that you're feeling, where those feelings are coming from, what, the frustration, scared, all that stuff. And then it might be worth having a conversation with your son. I think sometimes it's really a tricky situation, but I think it is one-off, because we're not talking about, I think sometimes when you're having a conversation about the LGBTQ community, sometimes people feel afraid to ask questions. Sometimes people feel afraid to share their thoughts or their feelings, or to get clarity. So have the fact that this is your son and you already have that level of trust, that level of love, that level of support. I think once you process your feelings, I think it's absolutely fair for you to, have a conversation with your son, and, he could probably help ease some of your concerns as well. So for example, you may say, I'm afraid that, someone might hurt him, right? That could be a very real fear. And he may be able to calm your fears by letting you know, nope, I'm being super safe. I'm being, I'm not being reckless, or whatever it is, whatever your fears are, he may be able to, through conversation, help ease those fears. So, but I think initially you want to process it yourself, because you want to be able to speak clearly about what you're thinking and what you're feeling. I would also say, to continue to remind your son, and I'm sure that I probably don't have to tell you this, but to continue to remind him that he is loved, that he is supported, that that you are not going anywhere, that your relationship is not going to, that this doesn't change anything about your love for him, your relationship with him, and all that stuff. And I feel confident in saying that because of the way that you responded when he told you that he was gay. Now, if you would have told me that your son told you he was gay and you kicked him out and did all these other things, then that would have been another, I probably would have given a different bit of advice. But the fact that you had the conversation, or that he told you you were emotionally mature enough to kind of put your feelings aside and support him in that space, I think that's a good idea. And so because you're able to do that, I think you will be able to have a really beneficial conversation with him once you process your feelings and your emotions. So I think those are the first things. One, you supported him. Two, now go back and process how you feel. Three, have a conversation with him, and maybe more than just one conversation, but have a conversation with him. Talk through some of the things that you still feel like you need to have a conversation about or put on a table. And I'll address the church question just a little bit because I think, obviously it probably will, like people will probably find out. And I guess for you having to figure out what your response is going to be, because I'd imagine that you'll have some people who will find out and not think twice about it. You may have people that will find out and feel like that they, want to offer some kind of commentary or whatever that you may not be interested in. And so I think in that case, it could help to have like a canned response, to people who may want to chime in or give their thoughts. I would imagine that the concern that you have with the church is probably more from a space of judgment and criticism. And so in that regard, again, I would offer, to have some kind of canned response in that space. I know a lot of times, with the church, when it comes to the LGBT community, we know as Christians, we know what the Bible says about it. And that's, that is valid because as a Christian, you choose to ascribe to that faith and that teaching. And so what the Bible says about it is valid. But I think what the Bible says about it is valid, and you still have to have the relationship and support and deal with and love your son. So trying to find a balance there. It may be helpful to not engage in conversation. So for example, if you have someone from your church who says, hey, I heard this, and, they want to offer, whatever bit of advice, you could say something like, well, this is, a personal matter, and, we're not interested in, having a conversation. Like you can have a polite way to kind of tell people to, that this is not up for interpretation, is not up for conversation, is not up for debate. This is your real life, this is your family, and you're not interested in what anyone else has to say about it. And maybe in the future, you will be able to have a different conversation, but I think that it is a process, and you want to be, like, the priority is your son, you and your son's relationship. That is priority one. You don't owe anybody else a conversation about it. Your son doesn't owe anybody else a conversation about it. But in order for you guys to maintain your relationship, then that's the priority. Let me see what else. And then you said that you've been avoiding your son. And I think and it makes sense because you're still trying to process it, but I would encourage you to not avoid your son as much as you can. And here's the reality. I think a lot of times when things happen in people's lives, we feel like it has to change the dynamic of our engagement. And sometimes it really doesn't. Like whatever you talked about with your son, like whatever that relationship looked like before he came out to you, that relationship should still be the same on the other side of that. So if you guys, talk sports or talk business or whatever it is, like continue to maintain that same relationship and, create space for the relationship to develop and grow. But don't feel like you have to now flip that relationship on its head and try to show up different. Show up the same way you showed up before he told you this. And then, allow the relationship to continue to develop and grow as it will naturally develop and grow anyway, right? I think as parents, when you have children, you go from, I always talk about that parent to child relationship to that adult to adult relationship. And I don't know that you said how, okay, he's 19, so he's still relatively young, but he's still in that transition period where you are transitioning from that parent to child relationship to that adult to adult relationship, or that mentor to mentee relationship, like all of those things, as the child gets older, those relationships kind of change in that way. But as far as how you deal with your son, deal with him the same way that you would have dealt with, like the same way you dealt with him before, him coming out. So hopefully that helps, and hopefully that makes sense. But I would say, don't allow too much time to pass. Like if you used to talk to your son every day, still talk to your son every day, right? Don't change the dynamic of that relationship just because there's been a change in, not even a change, but just because he's shared this other part of himself with you. Continue to support him, have the same relationship that you've always had, and don't feel like you have to do anything different. I think that's probably why you're kind of avoiding him. One, because you're working through your own feelings, but then two, because you may not really feel like you know how to engage. But I would just encourage you to engage the same way that you've always engaged with him, and continue to love and support. And as a Christian, I'm sure to pray, and God is going to continue to speak love, and that you continue to show love. So that would be my advice. So hopefully that was helpful. And again, as far as backlash or gossip in church, I wouldn't. That's not even priority right now. But if you want to forward think, I would just say put some canned responses together. And just let them know that, it's not a matter that unless you're seeking counsel, right? But if you're not asking people for their thoughts or their opinions, just find a very, polite, clever way to tell them that you're not interested in their thoughts or their opinions. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, question number 2. Dear Dr. K, I've been dating this guy for about 6 months. We spend a lot of time together, but he never takes me anywhere. Every time we are together, it is him coming to my house to hang out. There are a few red flags, but honestly, I really enjoy spending time with him, and I don't want to mess things up. Here are a few flags. Oh my. Okay, here are a few flags. 1, I've never been to his house. I don't even know where he lives. And every time I ask to meet at his house, he says that he lives with his parents and he's not comfortable having a girlfriend over. Hold up. I've never been to his house. Y'all been together for 6 months. Okay. 2, second red flag. I've never met his family or friends. Last month, one of his friends Last month, one of his friends was having a get together. And when I asked why he didn't invite me, he said that he didn't think I wanted to go. Okay. 3rd red flag. Every time I ask him to go out to a movie or to get something to eat, he always says that he doesn't have the money. But when I offer to pay, he says that he doesn't want his girlfriend paying for dates. We're in our early 20s, and although I understand, I want to have a more serious relationship. How can I get my boyfriend to take me out? Well, first of all, I'm glad that you recognize those red flags, because those are like really like, what they say, like infrared red flags. Like, so you guys been together for 6 months. Let me see. You guys have been together for 6 months. I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So you're in your early 20s. You guys have been together for 6 months. You're really enjoying the relationship, but the only time that you get to spend time is when he comes to your house. Never takes you anywhere. And you want to have a normal relationship. You never met his family or his friends. You don't even know where he lives. And you never go out the house to do like real dates. So, and you said that you are in your early 20s. So early 20s, I'm guessing you're no more than 25. It's interesting because I often get questions that kind of surround like relationships, like, intimate relationships. And one of the things that I realize is that, well, one of the things I often advise is that within relationships, right, if you're dating someone, you have full intentions on why you're dating. So you know that, all right, I'm dating this person. I'm not looking to be serious. We're just dating and that's it. And that's fine. Or you may go into a situation where you're saying, I'm dating with the hopes and expectations to get married, and that's fine. Um, my point is that when you start dating someone, when you're like, you kind of know what your intentions are with regards to dating. A lot of people don't well, some people do just date to just date. But in that case, they're not necessarily, what is the word, exclusive. And so if you're dating to just date, then that means you're dating multiple people, which again is fine. So my first point of advice would be for you to be honest with yourself and understand, what are your intentions for dating? Are you dating with the intentions of having a real, what do you say, a more serious relationship? And in that case, then if you're wanting to have a more serious relationship, then you have to identify someone that you can have a more serious relationship with. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time, right? And you're allowing this person to waste your time. Now, 6 months, you may not meet somebody's parents in 6 months. That's fair. But for you not to have met his friends, that's a little odd for me, especially as 20 somethings. Like my children are 20 somethings, right? And their social life is like on 100. So they are constantly like going out to brunch or having game night, or just they're constant having Friendsgivings and all these different things. So their social life is like one of the most important things to them. Like my daughter literally moved into an area that was closer to her friends because her social life is like one of her top priorities. It's like, I want to be around my friends. I want to be able to work and live and all that stuff around where my friends are, so that she's not going up and down a highway. So I understand for 20 something year olds, your social life is high currency for you. So the fact that you're dating someone and have been dating them for 6 months and you've not met their friends, that is a serious red flag. Because how do you know that he is who he says that he is? Like, obviously you've met him, you've spent time with him, but how do you know that who he's presenting to you is who he really is? Like, he could literally have a whole other life that you know nothing about, in the fact that he's creating time and space to spend with you, but he's doing it in such an isolated way. He's doing it in a way where there's no chance for someone to run into you guys at a movie theater or run into you guys at a restaurant. So you're absolutely right for feeling a little for pointing out those red flags. For whatever reason, it sounds as if he is trying to hide the relationship. And that's curious, because again, what are you doing? What is he doing, right? Is he just dating for the sake of dating? And if you guys aren't on the same page, like, so if he's just dating you and dating other people, then I think he owes you that to communicate that to you. If he has some whole other life going on, then you owe it to yourself to probably demand a little bit more, a little more, what is the word? Transparency. The fact that he said his friend had a get together and he didn't invite you because he didn't think that you wanted to go. That's odd. Like, invite me and let me tell you I don't want to go. And so, of course, my pup is trying to come in. So he's about to bum rush the show, literally. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Those are a lot of red flags. At 20 something, in your early 20s, the world is your oyster. Like, you should not be, committed or wasting time with someone who is not committed and wanting to really develop or devote time to you and devote time to building something with you. So, I mean, your ultimate question is, how do I get my boyfriend to take me out? I don't think you should have to get your boyfriend to take you out. If he doesn't want to take you out, then I think you should find a boyfriend who wants to take you out, who wants to go out with you, who wants to spend time with you, and not, I don't want to say waste, yeah, I will say, and not waste time with someone who obviously have other things going on. Um, and 6 months, again, 6 months feels like a long time, but it's not too much time invested where you can't turn around and walk away and start something different. At this point, I wouldn't even recommend or suggest that you try to get to the bottom of it with him. Because obviously, I mean, it's very obvious to me that there's something more going on with him. And I think that you asking him or even trying to say, look, I want a serious relationship. I need you to do da, 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 da. I don't know that he would probably even be in a position to really, to be honest enough with you, or um, to be able to commit in a way that you want him to commit, because it sounds like he's going through great lengths to not commit for whatever reason, right? And if he was being honest to tell you the reasons, then you guys would have probably already had that conversation. Um, yeah, the fact that you said you guys have never gone out to a movie or out to eat, even when you say that you'll pay for it, and he's just like, no, I don't want my girlfriend paying. Like, that's, yeah, I feel like obviously there's a lot more going on here with him. I would recommend that you start dating. So if you're looking to date seriously, have a more serious relationship, as you noted here, then I would say to start looking for someone who is also interested in having a serious relationship, because it does not sound like the guy that you're dating right now. And I say dating loosely because he's not taking you anywhere. I would say that the guy that you're seeing right now is not interested in dating anyone seriously. And so you could give him the courtesy and let him know that you're, moving on. You want something more in a relationship, and give him the courtesy to let him know you're moving on. Or you can just move on. I don't want to encourage you to ghost anybody, but I would just say, just making yourself unavailable. Like, if the only time that he wants to spend with you is at your house, like Netflixing and chilling all the time, absolutely not, baby girl. You are, what you say, early 20s? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. So yeah, I would recommend that you don't waste any more time trying to get this guy to date you more seriously, but go out and meet people. And if you're interested in dating seriously, find someone else who is also interested in dating seriously. Good on you for recognizing the red flags. Good on you for, reaching out and saying, hey, how do I move forward? But I just want to encourage you to, with that same energy, seriously move forward and, let him figure himself out. And, I'm sure he will be fine. And whatever else he has going on, he will be fine. But for you, you're too young to carry that burden. I think a couple of weeks ago, I had someone had a similar question. And, one of the things I told her in my response is that you don't have to solve for that person. Like, you're solving for you. And so if you already decided for you that you want to have a serious relationship, then you solve that. That's the problem you're trying to solve. You're not trying to solve him. You're not trying to fix him. You're not trying to figure him out. You're not trying to do any of that. Your question is, you that you want to have a more serious relationship. So that's the solution. That's the problem that you're trying to solve. How do I have a more serious relationship? And my response to that is to find someone who is equally interested in a more serious relationship, connect with that person. And until you find that person, be open to dating. I don't know what the dating scene is like out there, but I would say be open to dating. And meeting people and connecting with your friends. Like, if you have friends, connecting with your friends, doing social stuff with your friends. And maybe in the midst of that, you'll get to meet another guy who is, kind of on the same page as you. But I would say, bid this guy a farewell and move on to something that's more suitable to who you are and where you're going in your life and the things that you desire for yourself. So that was a really good question. Thank you for sending that in, and thank you for sharing that. Hopefully my response is helpful to you, and that you take the proper steps to solve for you and not try to solve for him, and not waste your time trying to solve for him. Just solve for you. And like, you'll never meet the guy that's for you if you're Netflixing and chilling in a house with this guy that don't want to take you out the house. Like, you got to get out so that you can meet people. And if he just has you in the house, then you're not going to meet anybody. And that's fair, right? 6 months, just count it as a lesson learned. You've sharpened your red flag, skills and all that stuff. Just count it as a lesson learned and move on. So hopefully that was helpful. That was a really good question. It's amazing to me. I have been out of the dating world for many, many, many years. My husband and I will be celebrating 32 years married in February of next year. And so I have been out of the dating scene for a very long time. But one of the things I do remember, obviously having been young and dating at a time in my life, one of the things I do remember is, identifying for yourself, like, if you want to just date, like being okay with that and just going out to dinner and movies and drinks or whatever you guys do, just being open to doing that, going out and doing that. And if you're looking for someone or a more serious relationship, being open to that as well. But then also recognizing that when you're wasting time with someone who's playing games over here, then you are for sure really going to miss the person that is out there for you. And so, when you're that young, and even when you're older, like, it doesn't matter. Like, what it is that you want for yourself. And I just want to encourage you to, always solve for you, like where you are, what you desire for yourself, where you see yourself, what you need for yourself. So solve for you, and don't try to fix the other person or solve the other person, fix their problem. Don't do any of that. Figure out what it is that you need and get from relationships what it is that you need. And that's not even just with, romantic relationships. That's with friendships as well. Just, understanding what it is that you want and desire from a friend. And it's interesting. This is going to tie a little bit into what I want to talk with you guys about. But I met with this group. There's a group of women that get together once a month, and I go when I can. This past month, I actually went and we met. It was like a coffee and conversation. I don't think that's the name of it, but it's something along those lines. And so I was talking to them about friendships, and one of the ladies there was so phenomenal. She talked about friendships, and she said that, she said when you meet people, they are either, how did she say, familiar, friendly, or friends. And people who are familiar are people that you just kind of know and you're familiar with each other, but you wouldn't really call each other friends because there's criteria to your friendships, right? And then she said people who are friendly, these are people that are nice to you and you're friendly to them as well, but you still wouldn't necessarily call them friends because they don't meet that criteria, whatever that criteria is. And then there are the people who are actually your friends. And so one of the things that, we talk about, one of the things that I took from that conversation was for me to kind of assess for myself, what is the criteria? What do I need in a friend? What do I need from someone that I call a friend? Again, not someone I'm just friendly with, not someone who I'm familiar with or who's familiar with me, but someone that I actually call a friend. And so I am personally kind of going through that process of really trying to identify what's the criteria with friendships, because I think social media as well, like on my Facebook page, I have like 700 and something friends, right? Half the people I don't even know. Half of them don't even know me. We've just met through other acquaintances or met, through other scenarios. Like if I've gone to a conference and I met someone at a conference and I'm going to follow you on social media. And so sometimes we get a skewed idea of what friendship looks like. But I think the key is really checking yourself and realizing what is it that I need in a friend, just based off my personality, my lifestyle, my whatever, what is it that I need in a friend, and really doing that assessment and developing what that criteria is. And I would recommend the same thing when you're talking about being in a romantic relationship. What is it that I need from a mate? What is the criteria? Obviously, a lot of times we say, I want someone who makes me laugh, or I want someone who's honest. I want someone who is caring and loving. Like, you list all those different things, but what does that look like, right? Do you swap the social part of it for, we get to sit on the couch on the weekends and he holds my hand, right? Is that enough? Or do you need, like, no, I want to go out to dinner. I want to sit across a beautiful restaurant. I want to, whatever. Like, you have to decide for yourself what the criteria is. And like I said, it's not just in romantic relationships, but it's in, in friendships as well. Now, moving a little bit off of the topic, but still kind of in the same space, as you guys know, with growth and therapy, I'm kind of going through this space now where I'm really trying to figure out, like, okay, what's next for growth and therapy? And I feel like, as Dr. K is kind of is kind of a part of that, and mainly because I think that for me with growth and therapy, I think where I am right now is more on a one-on-one or more personal, like connection kind of space, and not so much like the conferences and, the big room full of people and all that stuff, not the big conversations and all those things, but really just like one-on-one engagement is kind of where I feel like I'm at right now. And interestingly enough, as I was kind of processing, I had reached out to my web designer. And I'm like, yeah, I need to make some changes to the website. I want to, particularly like some of the services or offerings that we have listed on the website. Like, I want to change those things, and I'm still trying to figure it out, right? And this morning, I was listening to a brother in the faith, Pastor Keith Moore. If you guys are not familiar with him, check him out. He is phenomenal. But I was listening to him this morning, and he was just kind of sharing about really just kind of walking in the purpose and in the will of God and doing what God has called you to do. And it convicted me so much, because a lot of the things that I was thinking of changing on the website was not really consistent with what God was telling me to do, but it was more of the idea that I had for, like, for growth and therapy. And a lot of those ideas was coming from a space of frustration. It was coming from a space of like trying to get some new energy behind it and all these different things. But it just really wasn't consistent. It really wasn't, it wasn't what God told me to do. It was just me trying to, trying to rewrite, what growth and therapy is. And so I just, convicted of that this morning. And as I kind of sat and listened to this message from Keith Moore, and I can't remember the title of the message, but as I sat and listened to the message from Keith Moore, it really helped me to understand that, that God has a purpose for the ministry. And although I know this, sometimes I think looking at what other people are doing and, and the spirit of comparison and all that stuff, you're kind of like, okay, man, what growth and therapy has been in existence for 12 years. And, I should have this, it should be this, it should be, and it's like, no, it should be exactly what it is, what God has called us to be, and it has to be authentic. And so if I'm trying to create it and make it something else, it's not going to work, right? And so coming to the realization that I only want growth and therapy to be what God has called it to be. And one of the things that the Holy Spirit, as I was, having this conversation this morning, one of the things that the Holy Spirit reminded me of is that, when I think about ministry, because that was one of the things. So I was like, right now on the website, it's like Growth and Therapy Ministry. On so many other platforms, it's just Growth and Therapy. Some of it's Growth and Therapy Inc. And it's only Inc. because it is a 501c3. But ultimately on the website, I was looking to remove ministry off of everything. Like, I was keeping the scriptures there, and this is me just being 100% honest, as I was, trying to look at the website and kind of writing down some of the edits that I wanted to make. And, in the sense of my web designer, I found myself in a lot of spaces where ministry was. I was like, okay, I'll take that out. But it was like, again, that's not consistent because it is ministry. And what the Holy Spirit reminded me this morning, as I was just kind of talking through it, is that ministry is really about healing, and you heal through relationships. And this is the connecting piece that I want to make, or point that I want to make, is that relationships are supposed to be healing, right? They're supposed to be nurturing, right? And so when I think about girlfriend therapy, one of the pieces that I always say is just, for me, like, I want to be that girlfriend that is going to be honest with you, that girlfriend that's going to love on you, that girlfriend that's going to encourage you, that girlfriend that's not going to judge you. And that's how I kind of start looking at girlfriend therapy. So when I said to take it off of this, this big conference kind of thing and make it more one-on-one and more personal, that's the offering that I have, is just my friendship, my convictions, when it comes to different things, and really still rooted in the faith, because I'm rooted in the faith, and not losing the ministry part of it, because it really is meant to be like healing, right? So when I think about my best friends, and I think about my friends and my husband and people who I'm in relationship with, when we talk to each other and I share with them something that's heavy on my heart, and they encourage me, they give me advice, they give me guidance, and vice versa. When they share something that's heavy on their heart, then I encourage them, I give them advice, and I give them guidance. And when I do Ask Dr. K, that is ultimately what it is. I look at myself as like a friend, as your girlfriend, as, a friend who is, you send in your questions, and I, from a place of love, from a place of compassion, from a place of understanding, from a place of sympathy and empathy and grace and all of that, just kind of giving my thoughts and my ideas in a real way, that will bring healing and help you in whatever situation that you're in. So that really ultimately is the goal, for not just Ask Dr. K, but for girlfriend therapy as well. And so I share all that to say that as I make updates to the website, you will see, Ask Dr. K. That information is not currently on my website, but it will be added to the website. But I need to start thinking about this Ask Dr. K in that same way that I think about girlfriend therapy, but really thinking about it on a one-on-one basis, individual kind of relationship, individual connection, and then not losing sight of the healing component of ministry. And again, we heal through, conversation. One of the foundation scriptures that will forever be a part of girlfriend therapy ministry is we overcome the enemy through the blood of the Lamb and through the words of our testimony. And so when people send in questions, this is them, almost testifying and saying, this is what I'm going through. Can you help me find a solution, or can you give me some advice? What would you do in this case? And so and it really is through, having those conversations and helping to give other perspectives, that people can find solutions and solve problems that, and ultimately, heal from anything that's troubling them or challenging them or whatever it is. So I gave all of that to kind of just come to this one piece, but I think it's wonderful how God works, in that way where, you're thinking one thing, and you're trying to move in a direction that is not what you're supposed to be doing, but you feel like, okay, well, this is the way that the world is moving, and so I need to move in that way. And God is like, no, you're not moved by the world. You ought to be moved by His will, and His will being God's will and not your own. And so, as I come on here and I answer these questions, I try to be as clear as possible, as honest as possible. Like, I answer these questions the way that I would respond if my daughter came to me, if my son came to me and said, hey, this is what I'm experiencing, or anybody else that I love and know and care about came to me and said, hey, this is what I'm going through. I try to answer these questions in that exact same way. What I realize is that there is a lot that's going on in the world. And I tell you, things are moving at a million miles a minute, with regards to, and like socially, when we're talking about, social political issues, a lot of that can be so heavy. And I know so many people are struggling to make decisions. They're struggling to be in relationship. They're struggling, outside of relationship. There's just a lot going on. And if I can offer any kind of advice or any thoughts about anything, I just encourage you to. And then a lot of times, this is the other piece to why Ask Dr. K is anonymous, is because sometimes you could be going through something and you just don't feel comfortable to share that with people who know you, more personally or more intimately. You can have, especially when you're talking about relationships, for example, you can have, you could be with a guy who constantly gives you woes, and, you've talked to all your girlfriends about them and they've given you their advice and they're tired of hearing about him, but you're still trying to work through it. And you can send a question to me and say, hey, this is the situation. What are you thinking? And then I can give you some advice, and, and you can take the advice and take from the advice what resonates with you. But just know that it is coming from a pure and an authentic place. And I only give advice, the same kind of advice, with the same level of love, compassion, honesty that I would give to, like I said, there was somebody in my family that was asking me these questions. So, thank you guys so much again for sending in questions. Thank you for allowing me space to just speak into your life and speak into your situation. Thank you for you guys on YouTube and on IG Live who've come in and joined the conversation. A lot of times I'll leave space. We have about 10 minutes left, but I'm not going to take this time if I don't have to. But I would like to leave space. I see a couple of people on live on both platforms. But I would like to leave space if you have some questions, you had a comment, you wanted me to help you solve something, or you wanted to pose a question about something. I can definitely leave a few minutes on for you to do that. And in the meantime, and if you don't want to do anything while we're live, you can always send questions to Kwanzaa@girlfriendtherapy.org. That's my email address, Kwanzaa@girlfriendtherapy.org. And in the subject, just write Ask Dr. K, and I will pull your question, and hopefully it will make it to one of our one of our live sessions. So, well, not hopefully, it will make it to one of our live sessions. And I try to get at least not let too much time pass between the time I receive questions and me actually broadcasting them live. So if you have questions, for sure, send them in, Kwanzaa@girlfriendtherapy.org, and we will answer them live and anonymously every Monday at 8 on IG Live and on YouTube Live. And without further ado, I do not see any questions. Sorry. Yeah, I do not see any questions, but without further ado, and if you missed the beginning of this broadcast, it'll definitely be saved on both platforms. Go back, check them out. I always say that a lot of the responses that I offer, may have some credence and validity to something that you may be experiencing as well, or something that someone you know and love might be experiencing. So with that, please definitely, share the information, share the broadcast or the recording. Send questions if you have them. And I think that's it, guys. So yeah, send questions if you have them. And I'm going to end it there. I do not see any questions coming in. So, but thank you guys again so much for joining me. And until next week, I don't think that there's anything that's going to disrupt next week. Last week, I was just super tired, guys. But I do plan to be on every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, IG Live and YouTube Live. So until next week, I bid you guys God's best blessings. Remember to take care of yourselves, take care of others, spread love, guys. People need it. The world needs it. So love you guys so much. And until next time, blessings.